The stock market just hit an all-time high. Unemployment is at historic lows. GDP is growing. And yet, millions of Americans can't afford to buy a house, can't afford to have kids, can't afford to retire, and are one medical bill away from bankruptcy. So let me ask you something. If the economy is doing so well, why does it feel so bad? That question used to get you labeled a conspiracy theorist. But here's the thing, the data agrees with you. The math just stopped adding up. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening, why the old rules no longer apply, and most importantly, what smart people are quietly doing about it right now. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to see the economy completely differently. Act 1: The illusion of a good economy. Let me take you back to 1970. A man named Robert gets a job at a factory in Ohio. High school diploma, no college degree. By age 30, he owns a home, has 2 kids, a car, and a pension waiting for him at 65. He didn't inherit money. He didn't invest in stocks. He didn't have a side hustle. He just worked. Now fast forward to today. His grandson Marcus has a college degree, $60,000 in student loans to go with it. He works in marketing, makes $55,000 a year, and after rent, car payments, subscriptions, and groceries, he saves about $200 a month. At that rate, Marcus will be 71 years old before he can afford a down payment on a median-priced home in his city. Same country, same work ethic, completely different outcome. And the reason? The economy didn't just change. It was restructured in ways that benefit some people enormously and quietly punish everyone else. Here's the first thing that stopped making sense. We measure the economy by how markets perform, not by how people live. The S&P 500 is up. Great. But 57% of Americans own zero stocks. So when Wall Street celebrates a record-breaking year, more than half the country is literally watching someone else's scoreboard. GDP per capita in the U.S. is one of the highest in the world. But GDP doesn't measure if that wealth is reaching you. It measures the total size of the pie, not whether you're getting a slice. This is the first crack in the illusion. Act 2: The 3 things that broke. So what actually broke? 3 things, and they all happened at the same time. Broken thing 1: The housing market. In 1985, the average home cost roughly 3x the average annual income. You saved for a few years, you bought a house. Done. Today, the average home costs nearly 7x the average annual income. In cities like San Francisco, New York, or Miami, we're talking 12x to 15x. And it's not just supply and demand. Institutional investors, BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and dozens of others, have purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes in the past decade. Not to live in, to rent out. When corporations compete with first-time buyers, buyers lose. Every time. Broken thing 2: The salary trap. Here's a number that should make you angry. Since 1979, worker productivity in the U.S. has increased by over 60%. Real wages? Up about 17%. That gap, that enormous, growing gap between how much value workers create and how much they're paid, is not an accident. It's a design. Companies figured out that salary increases are optional, but profit growth is a mandate. So they held wages flat, automated what they could, outsourced the rest, and called it efficiency. The result? A college degree now gets you what a high school diploma got your grandfather. And a high school diploma now gets you a lot of financial stress. Broken thing 3 inflation hit the wrong things. The official inflation number, the CPI, sounds manageable. 3% for percent, maybe 5% in a bad year. But CPI is an average, and averages hide the truth. Here's what's actually inflated since 2000. College tuition, up over 200%. Healthcare costs, up over 150%. Housing prices, up over 160%. Childcare, up over 130%. These aren't luxuries. These are the 4 things you need to build a stable, middle-class life. And all 4 have become nearly unaffordable for a generation of workers who were told to just work hard. Meanwhile, the price of a TV dropped. So the official inflation number looks fine. Act 3, why nobody's talking about it. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Why isn't this the top story every single day? Simple. The people who own the media are the same people who benefit from the system staying exactly as it is. When 65% of household wealth in America is owned by the top 10%, and when that top 10% owns most of the stocks, most of the real estate, and most of the businesses, they aren't experiencing the broken economy. They're profiting from it. And so the narrative stays controlled. You'll hear, the economy is strong. Unemployment is low. Just spend less on avocado toast. What you won't hear, the system has been quietly redistributing wealth upward for 40 years, and wage-dependent workers are falling further behind every single year. Not because it's a secret. The data is public. The research exists. But it's inconvenient. And inconvenient truths don't get primetime coverage. Act for what smart people are doing differently. Okay, enough of the bad news. Because this is where dollar sense gets practical. If the old playbook is broken, what's the new one? The people who are actually building wealth right now, in this economy, share 3 things in common. Strategy 1, they stop trading time for money as their only income. A salary is a single point of failure. If your only income source is your job, you are one layoff, one health crisis, one company decision away from financial disaster. The new wealth builders have multiple income streams, not because they're grinding 18-hour days, but because they've built systems that generate income without constant input. Dividend stocks, rental income, digital products, content, licensing, even an extra $500 per month from a second stream changes everything. It's not about the amount. It's about breaking the one-source dependency. Strategy 2, they buy assets, not status. In a broken economy, what you own matters more than what you earn. The people winning right now understood, early, that owning assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, even content IP, is how wealth compounds. Spending your income on depreciating status symbols keeps you on the treadmill. This doesn't mean living like a monk. It means being intentional. Every dollar either builds your balance sheet or doesn't. Over 10 to 15 years, That discipline becomes the difference between stress and freedom. Strategy 3, they understand what the Fed actually does. Most people think the Federal Reserve exists to help the economy. That's partially true. But more accurately, the Fed exists to manage inflation and stabilize the financial system. And its primary tool, interest rates, has massive side effects. When rates were near zero from 2009 to 2022, borrowing was cheap. Asset prices exploded. People who owned assets got dramatically richer. People who held cash got quietly poorer through inflation. When rates rose from 2022 onward, debt got expensive. Mortgages doubled. Credit card debt became brutal. But people who locked in low-rate mortgages years before, they're sitting on assets that are now worth far more than they paid. The lesson: the rules of the Fed's game are public. You can learn to play on the right side of it. The real point. Here's the honest truth. The economy isn't going to fix itself for the average worker. Not next year. Probably not next decade. The structural forces, wealth concentration, institutional real estate, wage suppression, took 40 years to build. They won't unwind quickly, but that doesn't mean you're powerless. Because the people who understand what's broken and why are the ones who stop waiting for the system to reward them and start building their own systems instead. The question isn't, when will the economy get better? The question is, what am I doing right now so that my financial outcome doesn't depend on the answer? That's what this channel is about. Every week, we break down the real rules of money. Not the ones they taught you in school, not the ones the headlines push. The actual mechanics of how wealth is built in the world as it actually exists. If that's the kind of financial education you've been looking for, subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.